Welcome back to the channel, and today we are going to be going over our 2026-27 record slash playoff predictions. The schedule just got released 2 days ago, I believe, is the time of this video coming out. And every what I like to do every year is as soon as the schedule comes out, I like to predict every single game as well as the playoffs. And so I've already predicted my records, and we'll go division by division, and then we'll live fill out the playoff bracket. But without further ado, let's get into these record predictions. Because I could show you game by game, but that just would have taken way too long. Because there's a lot of games per NFL season. So we're just gonna we're just gonna show the records. So first division, the best division last year, we have the NFC West. So I have the Niners or not the Rams at 12 and 5, the Seahawks also at 12 and 5, the Niners at 9 and 8, and the Cardinals at 3 and 14. First, starting off with the Cardinals, they got some pieces, right? I'm gonna say a lot of things I said in my power ranking video, so there's gonna be a lot of repeat there, but they have some interesting pieces. But if you look at their schedule, because I guess we can pull up schedules here, it's kind of crammed in. But they have an insane schedule. Chargers, obviously their own division, the Lions, the Broncos, the Chiefs, the Eagles, the Commanders, even though I had them beat the Commanders. Don't look at an individual, like who won each game. It was records is more of what I'm going for. I probably won't show the schedule every time because it doesn't really look very nice. But it's an insanely brutal schedule for the Cardinals, and they're not the best team. I wouldn't be surprised if they exceeded 3 wins, but right now I have them at 3 and 14. Niners at 9 and 8. They always seem to find themselves around that 9 to 11, 12 win range, and it really all depends on how healthy they are. Now I guess they were injured last year and still managed to win a bunch of games, and I think they won like 12 or so despite all the injuries, mainly because Mac Jones came in and won them some games when Purdy was hurt. But it's a tough division. I know it was last year and they still won a lot of games, and they're healthier going into the year. They got Fred Warner back, they got Nick Bosa back. George Kittle should be healthy week 1. Mike Evans is now on the team. So I could see them going in that 10 to 11 range, but I think just based on who they play, it's going to be really tough for them. So I have them at 9 and 8, and then the Seahawks and Rams, I have them both at 12 and 5. They were both the two best teams in the league last year. I think that's pretty easily the case again this year. I think the Rams are clearly the best team. Again, as you saw in my power ranking video, they're almost a perfect roster. However, the Seahawks, I know they lost Kenneth Walker, they lost Kobe Bryant, they lost uh, Reek Woolen and Boye Mafe. They were still one of the best teams in the league. They still have so much talent. And I trust the coaching. I trust their defense mainly, even though they lost some pieces. I think Mike McDonald can still make that defense be one of the best in the league. So I have them at 12 and 5 as well as the Rams. Not a lot of teams win. I think there was like 5 teams that won 13 plus games, and I don't have a single team winning 13 plus. I just think it's really hard to predict those teams to win that many games because when you're going game by game, you're like, oh, this team could win like 14, 13 games, but then you're looking at like, oh, they any given Sunday a team can lose, and I guess I just had these teams losing more than maybe they end up losing. Continuing on the NFC, we'll do the full NFC first, then we'll do the AFC. We have the NFC North. So I have the Lions at 12 and 5, winning the division, followed by the Bears and Packers at 11 and 6, and then the Vikings at 7 and 10. Starting off with the Vikings, another record that seems a bit low initially, especially going 1 and 5 in the division. First of all, it's probably the best division in football, top to bottom, right? The Vikings are probably the best. I'd say they're easily the worst team in the division. Doesn't mean they're bad because it's a great division, but I think they are the best, worst out of all the worst teams in each division, they're the best. It just so happens that they're in the same division as the Packers, Lions, and Bears. I think the Lions should have a much better year just off health, right? They get Kirby Joseph back, Brian Branch is back. I really like the moves they made on the offensive line in the offseason. And I know they struggled without Ben Johnson, maybe even without Aaron Glenn, but I just think with all the injuries they had, it's not really a fair test of how they're going to succeed post Ben Johnson and even post Aaron Glenn at offensive and defensive coordinator. So I think they'll be right back to being a very good team and one of the best teams in the league. The Bears at 11-6, there's some spots on that Bears team that I'm not fully sure on, right? The left tackle spot, they didn't go all in on their front seven, or not front seven, they're like D line. Like I think they still lack some pass rush. And then they don't have a lot of receiver depth, right? I like Luther Burden, I like Roma Dunze, but outside of that, they don't have a lot of depth at receiver. I know they got two good tight ends, which could kind of make up for a lack of depth because it seems like Ben Johnson likes two tight ends anyway. So it's probably just going to be the two tight ends and the two receivers more than it's going to be like three or four receivers anyway. But they do still lack some depth at receiver. But I mean, Caleb Williams was great last year. He now gets a year two in the Ben Johnson offense, which is I feel like is always you can never truly judge a young quarterback, especially a young quarterback who struggled his first year just because of the situation he was in, and then he gets a new offense after already having to learn the previous offense. You can never judge that first year truly just because they're learning a whole new offense. But now that he's comfortable in the offense, it could be a lot better. We could see a lot even better from the Bears offense. It's just that defense that worries me a little bit. But again, 11-6, still in the playoffs at the sixth seed and almost winning the division, one game behind the Lions. And then the Packers also at 11-6, very similar team to last year. All right, you get Tucker Kraft back after he got hurt halfway through the season. Micah Parsons, if he can bounce back from his injury, you get him back. It's the O line isn't perfect. They still don't have a true number one receiver. Maybe a guy like Matthew Golden can take that leap. Who knows without Romeo Dobbs there. And their cornerback room is still not great. And they do have a lot of tough matchups against a lot of really good receivers that they could struggle to cover some of those guys with the corners they have, but they do have two very good safeties in McKinney and Evan Williams, which could make up for that lack of cornerback talent. But again, still 11-6. And then I know that I said this earlier that I kind of sidetracked with the other teams, but Vikings at 7-10. I just don't know how much faith I have in Kyler and JJ McCarthy as your quarterback room. Obviously, I trust Kevin O'Connell as the coach to create a good system for whatever quarterback's playing. And again, 7-10 is still a good record. It's not terrible. Again, it's the best. I'm pretty sure it's the best record out of every last place team. So there's something there. But again, I just don't know how much I trust. I still think Kyler's a good quarterback, but it hasn't been the best recently for Kyler. And again, coming into a new system, even though it's a good system. And then they trade away Jonathan Grenard, so I don't know how much I buy into their pass rush. Their D line, they got Caleb Banks in the first round last year, and I think or in this draft, and I think they have another rookie who might potentially play a lot on that interior D line. So I don't know how much I like their D line as a whole outside of I guess no, yeah. Because without Grenard, I don't know how much I trust the whole D line as a whole. That was a whole D line as a whole. Whatever. And also their secondary, there's just some I don't know how much I like their defense. So that's why and again, very, very tough division. So I have the Vikings at 7-10. And again, I'm kind of breezing through these. If you have any specific questions or specific points of emphasis on any team, let me know in the comment section. I could try to explain further and explain my thoughts more. Next, we have the NFC East. So we have the Giants and Commanders splitting at 7-10. At the bottom, then we have the Cowboys at 10-7 and the Eagles at 11-6. I like what the Giants are doing in the offseason, right? Getting in Arville Reese, Francis Mauanoa in the draft. But they did lose Wandale Robinson. They lost Cordell Flott. They they lost some other pieces, I think. Obviously, they lose Dexter Lawrence, and that interior D line's not great. Once you lose Dexter Lawrence, Jackson Dart showed some promise. I liked what I saw from Jackson Dart, but I'm not fully bought in on Jackson Dart. Not enough to have the Giants, especially with a tough schedule, tough division. I'm not necessarily ready to have the Giants win 9 or more games. 7-10 seems a little high to be honest. I think they won like 3 or 4 last year. But you get help. Malik Neighbors is healthy. That obviously is going to help. They picked up Isaiah Likely. I like him. I like Likely. at tight end for them. Harbaugh coming in at head coach. Yo, I feel like Harbaugh, he may not have the best success in the playoffs, at least towards his end of his tenure with Baltimore, but he can give you some regular season wins. And obviously get Cam Scatterboo back as well. But I just think they're not there yet, but they are making a lot of progress. Same thing with the Commanders at 7-10. I know they made the NFC Championship 2 years ago, and Jaden Daniels' rookie season when he was fully healthy, he gets hurt in year two. They don't win many games, and now he's healthy in year three, but they only have 7 wins here. I feel like there's just a lot of holes still on this team. I love the Sonny Styles pickup, but your only really good linebacker is a rookie. Your safety room is not great. I don't mind the Nick Cross addition. He's better than he's easily better than what they had, but still not perfect. Their secondary isn't great. They don't have a lot of depth at receiver outside of Terry McLaurin. They have good players, right? Jaden Daniels, Terry McLaurin, Sonny Styles. They picked up Adafe Owe in free agency. I like that move. Even Kayvon Chason coming off of a breakout sort of year with the Patriots, they bring him in on a 1 year deal. I just think there's a lot of weaknesses. I think their defense might not be the best going into this year. And obviously, if you don't got a good defense, you're probably not going to win a lot of games. But I do think we see a lot better of an offensive performance, obviously, with Jaden Daniels healthy. But I just don't know if I trust their overall team around Jaden Daniels to get back to that NFC championship type run like they made his rookie year. Because they had a good team his rookie year. It was just an older team, mainly like guys like Bobby Wagner, Zach Ertz, all those type of guys. But those guys are now proving that they are old, and now they have a lot of more younger guys coming in. So it could be a tough year three for Jaden Daniels, but I trust that overall front office to keep building around Jaden Daniels. And again, I would not be surprised if Jaden Daniels is just that good and he could get them past 7 wins. Cowboys at 10-7, they're always going to win around this amount of games if they stay healthy. Obviously, they're going to be good. We all know how good their offense is going to be. The question has always been with Dallas has been their defense. But honestly, I don't think their defense is going to be that bad, at least in certain areas. Mainly their D line and their safeties, I think, are solid. Right? They picked up Jalen Thompson from the Cardinals in free agency, good player. And their D line, you now get a full season of Kenny Clark and Quinton Williams on the interior. And then they have Donovan Ezraku. I probably butcher. I never know how to pronounce his name. Who had a decent rookie year last year. You trade for Rashawn Gary. It's a decent D line, but they still lack a lot at linebacker and they still lack a lot at corner. Oh yeah, and Caleb Downs. Caleb Downs and Jalen Thompson are your safeties. So yeah, safeties, D line, very good for Dallas. But linebacker and corner, still a big question mark for me. But I think their defense won't be absolutely horrible. And I think you pair that alongside one of the best offenses in the league, I think they could still get a solid record. Unfortunately, 10-7 is not good enough to make the playoffs because the Bears and Packers at 11-6 beat them out there. But and then the Eagles at 11-6, they did lose pieces, right? They're probably going to trade AJ Brown to the Patriots. They lose Jalen Phillips. They lose the Kobe Dean to the Raiders. But they're still the Eagles. We'll see what they do under the new offense, right? You change coordinators, so maybe the new coordinator can help them. If their O-line can stay healthy, mainly Lane Johnson, I think we'll see a much better. We'll see the Eagles offense we know from years past, especially with getting a talent like Mekhi Lemon in the draft as well. You still have Dallas Goedert, even if he's nearing his end of his tenure with the Eagles. He's still there right now. He's still a good player. Obviously still have Hurts, who's proven to win games. You still have Saquon. And even though they lost some pieces on defense, they made up for it with trading for Jonathan Grenard. They did lose Reed Blankenship as well, but they also traded for Tariq Woolen. So they lost pieces, but they also kind of just replaced those pieces. So their defense, I think, is going to be very similar, which is we know is a very good defense. And I think their offense will take a step up. Now only 11 wins. I'm pretty sure they won 11 games last time, but if you're starting to sense a trend, 11 wins is pretty good. That's the second best record that I've had so far. And I'm pretty sure it's the second best record that I have in the entire league. So 11-6 is pretty good. And then finally in the NFC, we have the elite NFC South division, best division in football. Saints at 7-10, Falcons at 7-10, Bucks at 8-9, and Panthers at 8-9. This division could go any way. I could see every single team in this division finishing at every single place in the division. The Panthers could get 1 through 4, same with the Bucks, Falcons, and Saints. And as you can see by my records, that's very close, right? We had two teams at the bottom at 7-10, and two teams at the top at 8-9. I just think the Bucks and Panthers are slightly ahead of the Falcons and Saints. I love what the Saints did in the offseason, especially the draft, bringing in Jordan Tyson. They got Christian Miller, I believe, Oscar Delp, Tyler Shuck played well down the end of towards the end of the season. They signed Travis Achan. They have a great O line. Their defense is always solid, but I just need to see a little bit more from Shuck. That's not towards the end of the season for me to fully buy in on him, but he is close to me believing that he could be the future of the Saints. But 7 wins is still a big improvement from last year for the Saints. Same thing with Falcons at 7-10. One of the better surrounding. If you eliminate quarterback, the Falcons have one of the better teams in the league, in my opinion. Very good O line, elite skill players, and a good defense. But a QB room of Tua and Michael Penix is not something I trust in. Now, when they've had fluctuating quarterbacks, they've still been able to win games. Again, because they have such a good surrounding cast around that quarterback position. But sometimes it doesn't matter who you have around your quarterback if your quarterback's not either good or consistent. And I don't think that's what Penix, I don't think Penix or Tua are some elite, consistent quarterback that's going to get this Falcons team to maximize the talent they have. Still good enough to get wins, right? Tua and Penix can get you wins, but I think it's just not enough to win the division. And then Bucks and Panthers both at 8 and 9, the two teams that fought for the division last year. Panthers, I think, got better. They bring in Jalen Phillips. They bring in Devin Lloyd. I like the draft they had. Tampa definitely got worse, losing Mike Evans, losing Levante David. But I think the Bucks have the best quarterback and the most consistent quarterback. Now, Baker was not very consistent last year, but overall, he's been the most consistent out of him, Bryce Young, Tyler Shuck, Michael Penix, and Tua. Not really a not really a hard group of guys to beat there, but he's been the best of those, and they still have a very good team. Yes, they got worse, but that doesn't mean they're not bad. They're just not as good as they were last year, but still a very talented roster. And I guess the Panthers just got the tiebreaker over Tampa Bay, which is why they made the playoffs over them at 8 and 9 as well. Not that Bryce Young's the most consistent quarterback, but he is steadily improving every year. And if that continues, he could be in line for a decent year in year number 4, I think it is. Yeah, year 4 for him. But once again, the NFC South is the bottom division in football. Now moving to the AFC. We gotta speed through this. I know I'm taking a while here. AFC East, we have the Bills at 12-5, the Patriots at 8-9, the Jets at 5-11, and the Dolphins at 3-14. Dolphins, I think, is pretty self-explanatory. They basically don't really have much talent. They basically gave it all away through the deadline all the way to this offseason. And they also have a tough schedule. And I like Malik Willis. He's showed a lot of promise in the league so far, but I just don't know if he has enough to carry a not great Dolphins roster. So they're at 3-14. Jets at 5-11. I like what the Jets did. I think Geno can have a much better year than he did on the Raiders. I think we might see more of Seahawks Geno than we saw Raiders Geno, just because they got a good O line. They paired Omar Cooper alongside Garrett Wilson. Brees Hall is still there. Their defense has some good pieces, but they also lost some pieces as well. 5-11 seems a bit low. I could definitely see them getting to that 6 range, maybe even 7. But right now I have them at 5-11. Patriots at 8-9. I know they made the Super Bowl, but we can all be honest here. It wasn't the most real Super Bowl run. They got they had an easy schedule. They didn't have to play healthy Bo Nix. They're still a good team, still a well-coached team now. What's going to happen with the coach, that's a different story, but just overall, the Patriots organization as a whole is just a very well ran organization. They might trade for AJ Brown, which would make them a very good receiver room with AJ Brown, Keyshawn Booty, and Romeo Dobbs as your top three. Kyle Williams as well. They still have Travion Henderson, but I just don't see them getting back to where they were. They can still sneak in the playoffs because they had Drake May played great last year. Regardless of the schedule, Drake May is a good quarterback. But right now I have them at 8 and 9. They also lost guys like Kayvon Chase on, so I don't know how good their pass rush is going to be. So yeah, I have them at 8 and 9. And then Bills at 12 and 5. We all know how good the Bills are. I really liked what the Bills did in the offseason, bringing in DJ Moore. I like the draft they had. Bradley Chubb addition. If you look at his age and his contract, it's not great. But if he's healthy, just as a talent, it's not a horrible move. I think he's an upgrade over Joey Bosa. So him and Greg Rousseau. And I think they drafted TJ Parker. So that three-man edge rush room, I think, is better than they had last year. And that was one of their biggest weaknesses. And another one of their biggest weakness was receiver, and they add DJ Moore as well. They're gonna if Josh Allen's healthy, they're gonna be a good team. They're gonna compete for the division. And if the Patriots don't have as good of a season, I don't see a team really even getting close to the Bills for that division. Then next we have the AFC North. We have the Browns at 4 and 13, the Steelers at 7 and 10, the Ravens at 11 and oh, I forgot to finish the Bengals schedule. I missed Bengals Chiefs. How do I miss Bengals Chiefs? I missed this. Hold on. Let's just do this live real quick. The Bengals do play the Chiefs pretty good. But I'm gonna go with the Chiefs on this one. They're coming off a bye. And then I also realized that I didn't do a Broncos Chargers game. Where is it? Or wait. No, Broncos Jets. Ooh, Jets are at home. Maybe they can sneak one away from the Broncos, but I don't think the Broncos lose. So I'll go Broncos, and then the Chargers need to play a game. Chargers, who are they playing? Who did I miss? Chargers Raiders. I like the moves the Raiders made, but I'm gonna go with the Chargers. Okay. Sorry for that inconvenience. Okay, back to the AFC North. We have the Bengals at 11 and 6, Ravens at 11 and 6, Steelers 7 10, Browns 4 and 13. First of all, with the Browns, the two great drafts in a row. Last year's draft was amazing for Cleveland, and I really like what they did in this draft. But first of all, that means they're relying on a lot of young players because since they had such great drafts and since their team has been very good, they're playing a lot of their young guys. And while I like a lot of the young players they have, again, they are relying on young players. And the biggest thing with Cleveland of all is their QB room. Shador, Deshaun Watson, Dylan Gabriel, not good. That's not a good QB room. I have no idea who's going to start for them. Loki could be Deshaun Watson, so we'll see what happens with that. But it's just their defense is going to win them some games, but I just don't know if their defense can win them a ton of games, especially in a very good AFC North. Pittsburgh at 7 and 10. Pittsburgh finally goes below 500. You know why? Because Mike Tomlin's not the coach. Instead, it's Mike McCarthy. Maybe that's the reason Aaron Rodgers is likely going to come back. Maybe that's why they had to hire Mike McCarthy. Who knows? They're still going to be a good team, right? They still have one of the best defenses in the league. Aaron Rodgers is at least such a the track record of Aaron Rodgers. You you trust him to win you games. He may not be the same quarterback that he was early in his career, but you're not going to look at Aaron Rodgers and be like he can't win games with this Pittsburgh team who has DK, Michael Pittman, Jalen Warren, a improving O line, and one of the best defenses in football. I also just don't think Aaron Rodgers is at the point where he can take this Steelers team to win 11, 12 games, especially in the AFC North, because you have the Ravens and the Bengals who are both at 11 and 6. I like what the Ravens did, bring in Vega Ione, bringing in Trey Hendrickson. Same thing with the Bills. If Lamar Jackson's healthy, the Ravens are going to win games. I have them at 11 and 6. And then the Bengals at 11 and 6 as well. I love what the Bengals did. You already have one of the best offenses in the league, especially if Joe Burrow is healthy and not losing games at the beginning of the season like he always likes to do. Even though I actually predicted that because that always happens with the Bengals. It was always the defense. And even with a bad defense, their offense when healthy, can get them wins because it's that good of an offense. But now their defense adds Boye Mafe, Brian Cook, Dexter Lawrence, obviously. That Bengals defense might not be bottom three in the league. They might be somewhere around the 20th to 25th best defense. And if you give that Bengals offense a top 25 defense, I don't see why they can't win 10 plus games. So I have them at 11 and 6. Then moving on to the AFC West, we have the Raiders going 4 and 13 and then every other team going 11 and 6. I love what the Raiders did. Spent a ton of money and you keep Max Crosby. So you got Linderbaum in free agency, keep Max Crosby, you get the two linebackers from Quay Walker and Kobe Dean. You trade for is it Taron Johnson? You trade for Taron Johnson. Obviously bring in Mendoza. Now I don't think Mendoza is going to play a ton because I feel like that's why you brought Kirk Cousins in. And while Kirk Cousins can get you wins here and there, he's not at that point of his career or has not even close to the talent that he had in Minnesota or even Atlanta with this Raiders team. And I do think it's going to be another tough season for the Raiders, but hopefully we can see some Mendoza late in the season. We can see some sparks and some flashes from the number one pick. And then I have every other team finishing 11 and 6. Again, if Mahomes is healthy, the Chiefs are going to win games. I just don't think they're at the point where they're going to win the 13, 14 games that we saw them consistently win just because the rest of the team around Mahomes isn't great. Their O line still has some holes. Travis Kelsey's getting up there in age. Their run game hasn't been great, but maybe with Kenneth Walker, they can actually have a good run game for the first time in Mahomes' career or in a while for Mahomes. But their defense still has some question marks in the secondary slash playing some young guys. I do like their D line. Bring in Peter Woods from the draft, drafting R. Mason Thomas. You still obviously have Chris Jones. They have a good team and very well coached, and they're still winning 11 games, which again is the second best record of anybody in the league tied. But I just don't know if they're easily going to win those 13 plus games like they do when Mahomes is healthy a few years ago, just because the rest of the division is getting really good and their team isn't as good as it was a few years ago. Chargers at 11 and 6. Their O line's good now. At least they get Slater and Alt back healthy. Their interior, I like that they changed up the interior of the O line, but I still don't know how much I like their interior of the O line. Should be better. And obviously, if Alt and Slater are healthy the full season, their O line should be much better. And whatever you want to say about Herbert in the playoffs, they're going to be a good regular season team. They have a good defense as well, very well coached. They're at 11 and 6. And then Denver at 11 and 6. I don't know how much I trust Bo Nix going forward as the franchise quarterback of the Broncos, but he is still a very good quarterback that can win you a lot of games. They have one of the best defenses in the league. Their biggest weakness probably was their receiver room, because it was really just Cortland Sutton, but now they bring in Jalen Waddle. Great move. Yeah, you gave up pick 29 or pick 30, but good move regardless, in my opinion. You obviously have RJ Harvey and J.K. Dobbins, which is a great running back duo. It's still a good team, regardless of how much faith you have in Bo Nix as the franchise quarterback. He's still a good enough quarterback to win games, especially when his team is this good. So I have them at 11 and 6 as well. And then finally, the AFC South, with the Titans at 6 and 11, Colts at 7 and 10, Jags at 9 and 8, Houston at 10 and 7. I actually really like the Titans team. I really like Cam Ward. I think he's really good. He had some very good performances against some elite defenses last year with nothing to work with. And now they bring in Carnell Tate. They bring in Waddell Robinson. They add some help on defense, trading for Jermaine Johnson, signing Cordell Flott, signing Alante Taylor. They made some good moves. I like where they're headed. I think they can be one of the better bottom teams. Like when you look at the Browns, Raiders, Dolphins, Cardinals, Jets, I think those are the bottom five teams in the league. I think the Titans can be the best of those five. Colts at 7 and 10 seems a bit low, I know. I think I wanted them more that 8 to 9 range just because when Daniel Jones was healthy, they were one of the best teams in football. Are we going to get that for Daniel Jones again, though? Is my first thought. And I don't know. And they also do have some weaknesses. They don't have a lot of depth at receiver outside of Pierce and Downs. Their O line is still good. Still trust their O line. But I don't know how much I believe in their defense. They still do have some holes at linebacker, safety, D line. And again, it's a very good division, especially with the Titans getting better. I do think 7-10 seems a bit low, but I wouldn't give them much more than that. I think 8-9 is good record for them, but ended up with 7-10. Jags at 9-8, again, also seems a bit they won like what 11, 12 games last year. But similar to the Colts, they do have some holes that kind of scare me, especially at linebacker, right? You lose Devin Lloyd in free agency. Didn't really address that. Still don't love their tight end room. Their O line still isn't the best. Who knows what we're going to get at the running back position without Travis Achan at running back. So, but again, still 9-8, just barely missing the playoffs, just because teams like the Chiefs and the Chargers and the Ravens all at 11 wins. It's really I don't see the Jags winning 11 games. And then Houston at 10-7. I know they've been a very good regular season team, even if they haven't always played the best football in the playoffs. We all know how good their defense is, right? One of the best defenses in football, and they add Reed Blankenship, they add Caden McDonald in the draft. And I do like the stuff they did on the O line. I think they bring in Braden Smith. They obviously they drafted they I think they drafted Keelan Rutledge. I think. Could be wrong. They drafted an interior lineman that was good high in the draft, high-ish. They get Tank Dell back. You still got Nico Collins. You still got the two Iowa State receivers. And then it's CJ Stroud. It's all up to CJ Stroud, right? Great rookie year, good second year, okay third, like not the greatest last 2 years after his amazing rookie year. But I think that infrastructure around him just wasn't set up for him to succeed. It was just you were just able to get by just because how good the defense was. But when it came to the playoffs, they weren't able to get much done because of that surrounding cast. And I do think they improved, but I do have them at 10-7. And that is my final record for every team. And now we can go into the playoffs. How does this work? Okay, here's the wild card. So we have Panthers, Seahawks, defending champ Seahawks taking on the Panthers in Carolina. I like what the Panthers did, right? They played the Rams well last time they hosted the 4-5 matchup last year. But Seattle's the reigning champs. I'm going to go with the Seahawks here. Eagles, Bears. Ooh, this could have been a second round playoff matchup last year if the Eagles didn't lose to the Niners. But now we get it in the first round here. I think it might be tough for the Bears to handle that. But I guess the Eagles' strength is more their interior, and the Bears got a good interior O line led by Mr. Joe Tooney, so they might be able to handle that Philly D line. But Hurts might have a lot of time in the pocket with a potential lack of pass rush from the Bears. And I feel like if Hurts has time, he can have a good quarterback passing game and not just rely on his legs, even though he is a good quarterback when it comes to passing the football. It's not always the most consistent, but he's still good at it. So I'm gonna go with the Eagles here. And then Lions Packers NFC North matchup. The last time the Lions played in the playoffs, they lose to the Commanders as the 1 seed. And now they're back after missing last year, taking on the Packers. I'm going to go with Detroit here to over Green Bay. Now the AFC wildcard, Houston, Baltimore. When it comes to Houston, it's can your defense get to Stroud? Because if you let this Texans score 20 plus points or 24 plus points, you're not winning because that defense is that good. And I think that defense can cause Lamar a lot of issues just because of the O line that the Ravens have. So I think it's going to be a low scoring game because I do think the Ravens have a good enough defense to make it hard on Stroud. And their defense seems to play better later in the year than they do early in the year. I think Stroud's very good in the wild card. So I'm going to go with Houston here over Baltimore. Broncos Chargers is the 3-6. We all know Herbert's history in the playoffs. I'm going to go with the Broncos. Until Herbert proves me otherwise, I need to see it. I need to see him have an amazing playoff game before I can really buy in. And honestly, the rest of the team. Sometimes the rest of the team lets him down too. We can't. It's not all Herbert's fault. He just happens to play quarterback. And then Bengals Chiefs. The Bengals have success against the Chiefs in the regular season, although I did have the Chiefs beat the Bengals. But when it comes to the playoffs, it's kind of mixed, these teams' track record. But I'm actually going to go the Chiefs here, the 7 seed. Mahomes back in the playoffs after missing last year. He's going to want to prove something. So I'm going to go with the Chiefs. Now moving to the divisional round, we have Chiefs, Bills, Texans, Broncos, Seahawks, Rams, and Eagles, Lions. First, Houston Broncos. I'm going to go with the Broncos. I think that defense is just going to make it too hard on Stroud. And I think Bo Nix can have enough success against Houston, maybe get into the 20 points and win something like 21-17. Buffalo, Kansas City. We all know Kansas City has success against Buffalo in the playoffs. But actually, I'm going to go. Oh, do I want to go the Bills? You know what? Does Josh Allen finally beat Mahomes in the playoffs? But I don't know if I think I don't think the Chiefs or Broncos make the Super Bowl. I just don't know if the Chiefs have the talent. So I'm gonna go Bills, and Josh Allen finally beats Mahomes in the playoffs. Seahawks, Rams. These teams played each other last year 3 times. All three were great games. I guess the first time they played in the Rams wasn't great in terms of scoring, but it was still a good game. I think the Rams get their revenge. They have the cornerbacks now to deal with a Cooper Kupp, a JSN. And the Seahawks lost some talent at secondary, so maybe Devontae and Puka can have good games again. So I'm gonna go with the Rams. And then Eagles, Lions. I'm gonna go I'm gonna go with the Lions over the Eagles. And our AFC championships is the Bills and Broncos, and our NFC championship is the Rams and the Lions. I'm gonna make this quick. I'm going Bills, Rams. I think the Rams just have too much talent for Detroit, and I just trust Josh Allen in the playoffs more than I trust Bo Nix. So I'm gonna go with the Bills and the Rams. And the Super Bowl, I'm gonna pick the Rams over the Bills to win Super Bowl. What Super Bowl year is it? Hang on. It's Super Bowl 60, I think. Yeah, I think it's Super Bowl 60. The Super Bowl 60 winner is going to be the Los Angeles Rams. And again, when I this is just an initial reaction. I'll go I'll go back to week 18 so you can see the standings again. Here are our final standings. Again, this is just initial reactions as I sort of break down each team. I'll probably change my record predictions here and there, but just as an initial reaction, because I think it's always fun to just get the schedule and pick every game. This is how the playoffs shape out. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you are new, and as I said earlier in the comments section, let me know some of your thoughts and I can maybe explain my reasoning in a little bit more detail because I did go a little fast with some of these teams. But I'll see you guys next time. Peace.